ready to sow your own cauliflower seeds, but you're not quite sure how to get started?
Well, if you are, that's great, because today we're going to show you how to sow your cauliflower seeds indoors and outdoors step by step.
Hi, we're Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden. But before we get to sowing cauliflower seeds, did you know that cauliflower is very easy to grow and it even stores really well in your freezer?
Cauliflower is considered a cold season crop, and it can grow in a lot of different climates. It needs to grow in full sun, and it's both heat and cold tolerant. Now, before we show you how to sow your cauliflower seeds, there's a couple things we'd like you to know. First off, cauliflower is known botanically as Brassica oleracea. It's considered an annual crop, and it's hardy in zones 2 through 10. Now, most cauliflower will mature within 80 days after germination. Now, the cauliflower seeds we'll be showing you how to sow today are called Snowball Y Improved, and they're low maintenance, easy to grow, and they have average water needs, so you'll need to make sure to put them on a regular watering schedule. They're also fast growing and self-branching with an upright growth habit, so there's no pruning or training needed. They'll grow up to 24 inches tall and have a mild, sweet, nutty flavor with a tender texture. It also can be grown as a microgreen and has a really high yield capacity. Now, the harvestable crop is what's called a head, and it can weigh up to 3 to 4 pounds and be 6 inches in diameter. Snowball will need well-draining, nutrient-rich soil that's a little bit slightly acidic, around the 6.5 to 6.8 pH range. Now, Snowball will take up to 14 days to germinate, and it grows really well in raised beds, containers, and culinary gardens.
All right, let's talk about when to start sowing your cauliflower seeds, because you can sow them either indoors or outdoors. For indoor sowing, if you want to get them started early, you can start them indoors in the spring anytime 4 to 7 weeks before your last spring frost. If you want to direct sow your cauliflower outdoors, plan to start them 1 to 2 weeks before your last spring frost. All right, let's get these cauliflower seeds sown indoors. The first step is to get your soil ready for planting. We're using seed cell trays, as you can see here, and our soil is pre-moistened. The next step is to get ready for sowing, and it's helpful to use a tool like a seed dibber like we have here, but you can also use a chopstick or a knife. Right now, we're using our Diby XL to make small indentations in each cell that are 1/4 of an inch deep. Next, carefully remove your seeds from the packet and drop 1 to 2 seeds per planting hole. Carefully cover the planting holes with a little bit of soil. And the last step is to gently moisten the top of the soil to start the germination process. And that's how you sow your cauliflower seeds indoors.
Once your seedlings are germinated, you'll need to place them in a full sun location that gets at least 6 hours of sunlight each day, or you can place them under grow lights. Once your seedlings have grown at least 2 sets of true leaves, you can start to think about transplanting them out into your garden. But you need to wait until the last frost has passed, and you'll need to harden them off, which is a process of about 2 weeks long, where you'll take your seedlings outside starting at about an hour or 2 every day and work up each couple days, add on an extra hour to then at the end of the 2 weeks have them out all day long and even through the evenings and the nights, so they become acclimatized to your garden, and then you'll be able to plant them out in your garden. Now, whether you're transplanting out into the garden, like in your garden beds, or to a raised bed, or into a container, if you have heavy clay soils or porous soils, you'll need to add some type of organic matter or compost so you have deep, loose, rich soil to plant into. The key to transplanting any of your seedlings is to make sure to match the soil level for your seedlings to the soil level in your container or your ground beds. And the reason for this is you don't want to plant them too shallow or too deep. You want to plant them just right. Now, cauliflower needs to be spaced 18 to 12 inches apart. And as you can see here in this container, we're not going to have that spacing. So what we're going to do is we're going to plant it directly in the center so it has enough room to grow out into. Now, if you're planting cauliflower in rows, you'll need to make sure to keep that 18 to 24 inch spacing, but also plant your rows 2 feet apart. So to transplant your seedlings, make sure to tease them out of their seed tray and gently pull them apart, and then transplant them into your container or your garden. And the last step is to water in your seedlings. When planting your cauliflower seeds outside, make sure to check your soil. If it's really poor soil or it's really heavy clay, make sure to add organic matter or some type of compost to it so you can have deep, rich, loose soil to plant into. You'll need to sow each seed 18 to 24 inches apart, but if you're planting in rows, you'll need to space each row 2 feet apart. Now, we're going to be planting in this container, and since this container isn't even 18 inches wide, we're just going to plant one seed directly in the center of the container. We'll need to plant each seed about a 1/4 inch in depth, and so using our favorite seed sowing tool, the WXL, we'll place this down in here and get that correct seed sowing depth, and we'll place 1 to 2 seeds down in that planting hole. And the last step is to water the seeds in to make sure we start the germination process. Now in the weeks and months to come, you'll need to just monitor the growth of your cauliflower and the outside temperatures. The optimum growth for forming a cauliflower head, which is what you're going to harvest, is around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature falls below this, you'll have smaller heads, but you should still have something to harvest. Now, if the temperature goes above 60 degrees, you could have what's called buttoning happen. And that's when your head actually begins to flower and it becomes undesirable and doesn't taste very well after you harvest it and try to eat it. Now, cauliflower has what's called average water needs, and so you'll just need to keep the soil consistently moist and just make sure it doesn't dry out. If it does dry out, you could have some stunting happen. To keep your watering consistent, make sure to use some type of drip irrigation system or a water system that's close to the soil so the water gets to the soil and doesn't actually get the rest of the plant too wet. You don't want to promote any diseases. Another way to make sure that your soil stays consistently moist is to use mulch. This will also help with weeding and keep the weeds at bay. Make sure to pick up your damaged or dead leaves because cauliflower is susceptible to alternaria leaf spot and downy mildew. They're also susceptible to whiteflies, caterpillars, and aphids, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. Now, it's okay to fertilize your cauliflower while they're growing, but when those flower heads start to develop, use a lower nitrogen level fertilizer so it doesn't impact or prolong them from actually flowering and developing.
You can expect to harvest your cauliflowers in about 80 days. You can harvest each cauliflower head by cutting it with a large knife. Harvest in the early morning after watering when the plants are least stressed. Each cauliflower head can be stored in a refrigerator for up to 5 days before being eaten, or you can freeze it for later consumption.
Now, if you need more vegetable or flower planting or growing tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
And we hope this video was really helpful for you in sowing your cauliflower seeds. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.